I'm lucky nothing happened. Um, I don't know if something ever happened with my nephew because he never talked about it. And did the eggs burn?
Sure.
Everything fell apart? Hi. Hi, Evan.
Spielberg.
So who's with you? Joshy with you?
Yeah.
Come on in, Josh.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. I got enough dirt in the house. Did you put cold water on it?
Of course.
Come here and give me a hug.
Dad, where's your big screen TV?
Yeah, it's coming.
It's okay. Hang out, Evan.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be through in what, 10, 15 minutes?
15.
I did not have an easy, I didn't have a childhood.
I saved her from all that.
How do we meet? I had I don't want to say an old boyfriend, a previous boyfriend, and he saw me, and I was with a girlfriend. But anyway, he saw Sarah Lee, and he says, I have one Jewish friend. That's all I've got, one Jewish friend. He says, let's go for coffee. It was May 18th, yes? Or 17th?
17th.
May 17th. And he came, he calls, he says, don't go any place. And he was just smitten with Sarah Lee. And to tell you the truth, I don't know why. She was a nice girl, but maybe he was easily smitten. So he went and called your grandfather right away, who within 15 minutes or less came, and then we were at the Bolodrome, which is where, wasn't it the Bolodrome?
Yeah.
And upstairs in the Bolodrome, they had pool tables. We went to go bowling. We never even went up to play pool. Anyway, your grandfather came rushing over, and I don't remember. Then we went to Esquire.
Next
Right?
door to the Bolodrome.
Bolodrome was a Jewish deli, and we went and we had coffee, and then Jean said, let's go out tonight. And Sarah Lee said, I have to babysit for my niece and nephew. And so we went to, so she says, but you could come over. Who drove? Is that when you had the Hudson?
You had the Studebaker.
I didn't drive. I
I
did not drive.
I banged into your door.
That was the first day.
First
Was the first day. But that night you picked me up. You banged into the door, and my brother said, if you don't get this car fixed, it was because you couldn't open the driver's side. He took his foot off the brake. He was so busy watching me. He took his foot off the brake, and he banged into the door. And now my brother said to me, he was really on my case, and I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And he says, who is this guy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what's the difference? I'm never going to see him again. I'll get the door fixed, or I'll make him fix the door. Don't worry about it. And then the next day I called. Then he asked me out. And nobody had any money. So we go to Stafford's, which was on Linwood, a couple blocks from my house. And we would each get a cup of coffee and share a piece of pie, right? We met in May, and we got married December 29th, 1953.
52.
What is the matter with you?
It was 52. And the next two days later was 1953. Dig out the paper, I'll show you.
Just go on. Okay, it's not important. There's the phone. In the first year of our marriage, your papa's mother died, and your great grandfather said, "You'll move in with me." And Manny's aunt, High Saffron's grandmother, said, "Don't do it. It's a terrible mistake. You're not going to have a life of your own." And I just had all this responsibility. I went from being single to married with a baby and a father and a roomer, so to speak, and your grandfather and your great grandfather. I'll tell you when. We had Uncle. We had your dad, and then we had Uncle Jordan, and and then there was a big recession. Eisenhower was in the office, and it was a bit not compared to what's going on in Detroit now. It was this is far worse, I think, than because of so many changes that are taking place. These kids came. Your dad was out on the porch playing, and I was about to come out, and they took your dad was only maybe 3 years old, and they threw him off the porch intentionally. They viciously, because he was a white kid and they didn't want us in the neighborhood. And then we had other incidents. I would hang the clothes out to dry and people would steal it. I would put blankets outside, tear out, people would steal. They would just steal. They were vicious. Bad things happened. And I said to your father, we've got to move away because I'm afraid to go outside with the children and it's dangerous. And several of my neighbors had already moved away, and I felt very alone. And so we went looking for a house, and when the kids were starting to grow, there was just too much chaos to have another generation in the house. And the house, though, was 4 bedrooms, was just too difficult. And I said to your grandfather, I really think we have to your father has to live in another place. I said, do you know?
Yeah. I'm sure the front door's.
I said, he has lived with us. He lived with us almost, at that point, he had lived with us over 20 years. And he'd gotten ill, and your aunt literally ran away when she found out he got sick. She moved out of the apartment that they were living in together, and we got him to the doctor and found out he had cancer, and he lived about 6 or 7 years after he had the cancer operation.
77 to 84.
What are you talking about? He died in 76. Not from 77 to 84. He died in 1976. Evan was 11 years old.
Yes.
We moved here in...
He got the cancer when he was 77.
You know, it's interesting. He had stomach cancer, and the doctor at the time said, there's less stomach cancer now. But he had been a very heavy smoker for years. He stopped smoking 1 year when he caught a cold.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to try not to smoke. He was a very, very nice man. But when you got 4 boys and you're it was just overwhelming to have all these people, and I was working all the time. And anyway, we found that's when he moved in. First he moved into Northgate, then he moved in with your Aunt Millie. But that was for just a few years. But for 23 and a half years of our marriage, we always had my father. First 10 years we had your great-grandfather or your great-grandmother, meaning my mother. And when you're in a family dynamics are very interesting. And no family is perfect. And there's always soaps. In every family there's soaps that go on. Like you watch on television. I never watch soaps. I've lived through all those soaps. I'm one of the soaps.